Welcome back, Catia class. In this video, we're going to go over the part design app. So let's get started. And this is your Catia mentor. All right, so we're going to sketch a very simple part, machine part. I'm going to use profile. Notice it went into arc. I can say line. You can always go back to arc if you want. Back to line. Okay, let me throw in some quick dimensions. Let's make this a length of 8. And let's give this a height of 5. And a thickness of 1 inch. So I'm using inches for my units. And let's exit and create a pad. I'm going to make this a pad of 2 inches in both directions. So 2 inches to the left, 2 inches to the right, as you can see. And OK. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to round this off. I'm going to use, instead of fillet, I'm going to go over to refine and create a tritangent fillet. So we're going to use 3 surfaces to define our fillet. So first pick your outer surfaces, and the third one is the surface you're going to completely remove, which is the middle one. And preview, and you can see it's going to round it off, so it's tangent to all 3 surfaces, and it removes the center one. All right, let's go back to essentials, and let's create a hole center with the arc or the fillet. So I'm going to pre-select the arc to let Catia know that we're going to use the axis of the fillet or the center point of the arc as our starting point for the hole. So if I was to click down here at the bottom right corner, it's still going to center it about the arc. Okay, let's give this a diameter of 1.5, and the depth, let's go up to last and preview. There we have it. And OK. Okay, next step is to round off the corners here. So we'll use fillet. We'll select both edges. And let's give it a fillet of 0.5 inches and preview. Actually, let's make it a 1 inch radii. And OK, there we have it. Okay, so now I'm going to create a sketch with points to locate holes on this surface. So I'm going to create it. You can create it on the surface, or in this case the XY plane. Go to Sketcher. Alright, I'm going to project these arcs, project them into my sketch. Click away to deselect. And then I don't need to pick any more elements from the background, so I can go to View tab, and I can say Low Light. So it's easier to see your sketch, and notice it doesn't allow me to pick any more edges from the background or geometry in the background. You can also project curves, points, edges. If I go to the third option, it completely hides everything in the background, and sometimes this is useful when dealing with a complex part or when you're modeling inside of a large assembly. Let me go to Low Light. Alright, so now I'm going to create a rectangle. Go to Sketch tab. I'm going to create a rectangle centered about the arc. Notice how we have a filled circle that tells us we're picking the center of the arc. click. Alright, so notice we have the double circles here that tells us that the arc and the point are concentric. They share the same point, center point. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for the opposite side. So I'm going to select the arc, hold down to the control key on the keyboard, select the vertex on the rectangle, and put a dimension. Actually, we're not going to place a dimension. We're going to right click and say give us concentricity. There it is. So we have the double circle letting us know that the vertex is concentric with the center point of the arc. Okay, let me give this a length now. Let's go with 4.75. So I'm going to use the 4 vertices on the rectangle to locate my counterbored holes that I'm going to create after I exit the sketch. Okay, so let me start by first changing all the elements to construction elements. So I'm going to left mouse click and hold on the mouse, select everything, change it to construction. It actually changed everything to solids or object lines or solid points. Let me right click. Actually, let me do it from here. Change over to construction. There it is. Notice they're dashed now. Okay, so these are construction elements. If you were to exit the sketch, you would not be able to see the construction elements. Okay, now I'm going to pick the points. Hold on to the control key on the keyboard. Select all 4 points. And I'm going to turn them into solid points. Look at the points. Notice now they're crosshairs. They're not dots. Dots are construction points. Crosshairs are solid points. So now when I exit the sketch, I can see the points, but I don't see the construction elements. Alright, so let's go ahead and create a counterbored hole. So let's go to hole command. I'm going to pick a point, one of the 4 points. I'll pick this point. So if you want to locate it, pick a point. Then I want to counterbore from the top of the surface. Pick the surface. So instead of a simple hole, let's first draw or create the simple hole. I'm going to use a diameter of 0.5. Preview. Now let's say we're going to use a 1/2 inch diameter socket head cap screw. Let's say a 1/2-13 socket head cap screw bolt. So I'm going to add a clearance of 1/32 or 1/16. Let me back off and remove the units. Then go plus on the keyboard, plus 1/16 or 1/32, and then click away. So it's a clearance hole, slightly larger than the bolt that's going to go in there. And preview. Alright, next step is to introduce the second hole, the larger diameter hole, counterbored. We got to make this one larger. So let's make this maybe 1 inch. Preview. And that's a lot larger than what I need. Let me go with 0.875, 7/8. So 7/8 or 0.875 inches. Click away. Preview. Now let's change the depth. Let me make the depth. Let's go with 0.375 or maybe 0.4. Click away. Preview. And that's pretty good. Typically you want the head of the bolt to be slightly below the surface in most cases. And we're good. The depth, go up to last. It'll go through the entire solid for the small diameter hole. The large diameter hole of 0.875 has a depth of 0.4. If you want, you can increase it, but 0.4 is good enough, should be good enough, and okay. Okay, now instead of creating 3 new counterbored holes the long way, let's instead do it the shortcut. Let's use the shortcut by using pattern. Okay, so we're going to go over to pattern, but first let's pre-select our first counterbored hole. Then we'll go to transform. And for patterns, we're not going to use rectangular or circular. We will use user pattern. Our user pattern will be sketch 3, which contains the 4 points. So it's the last sketch which we created. 4 points on a sketch, right? Hit preview, and there's our user pattern. Hit OK. Now if I was to go back to our sketch 3, and just randomly added points, I'm going to click and just add points anywhere. I can also double click on the point command, but just to show you that if you change your sketch for your user pattern, exit. Notice it adds a hole at every single point location. All right, let me go back and erase those points. If you're not sure if you want to erase the points because you may want to come back and use them, you can always, I'm going to left mouse click and capture all the points that we just created and just turn them over to construction points, dots. And when I exit, the construction points will not show up, only the 4 solid points. Okay, another thing is if I go back to user pattern, if you want to remove one of the holes for some reason, you can always click on the dot, hit preview, and it'll hide that hole. Okay, it'll remove it from the pattern. If you want to bring it back, click on the point again, preview, and it brings it back. And OK. All right, let's now create a slot. So I'll still pick the XY plane, throw in a slot. And let me give it a dimension of 0.375 or 3/8 for the radius of the slot. Let's give it a length, center to center. Let's say 2. Forgot to hit enter. 2, enter. There it is. All right, and let's give it a distance from the edge to the center. And let's go with 2.375 so it looks centered with the whole pattern. And exit the sketch. And let's go ahead and create a pocket. So let's go back to Essentials. Make sure you have the sketch selected or selected after you hit the pocket command. Currently it's going in the wrong direction. Let's go ahead and flip it. You can also flip it from here if you want. And say, hey, let's go through the entire solid. Preview. Looks good. And OK. All right, let's add some fillets for practice. So let's add a fillet here. I'll make it 1/8 of an inch, 0.125, 1/8 of an inch, and OK. And we can also add fillets to the counterbored holes. It's difficult to machine a hole with no fillet. So let's go ahead and fillet that. That's way too much. I can go 1/32 or 1/64. Go 1 divided by 32. Preview. Okay, and let's do the same thing for the others. Okay. We may need to increase the size of the hole to accommodate the socket head of a socket head cap screw, half 13 bolt. We'll just leave it alone. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. So let's first give this a name. Go to reference, and I'll call it machined block. And OK. And save it. Alright, so in the next video I'm going to show you how to create a drawing of this machine block. Alright, see you on the next one, and I'll place the link down below for the drafting.